So this quarterly reading wrap-up, I thought I'd do something differently and instead create a Frankenstein mosaic wrap-up. I've already talked about most of the books that I've read this quarter in a reading vlog, and I don't really feel like rehashing all those summaries or rechecking out those books since they're mostly library books. So instead I thought I'd splice up all those clips into this video and just talk about the remaining books that I haven't mentioned in a vlog. So I finished a book. It's called Laziness Does Not Exist. It was pretty good. I gave it 3 stars. I don't really have too many thoughts on it. It was okay. It kind of repeated itself after maybe halfway through the book, but I didn't hate it, so it was fairly decent. Since I read it fairly slow and only in the mornings, I think the part where they started talking about boundaries is kind of where it lost its focus, but overall it was an okay read. It was a good reminder that it's okay to relax and to not stress yourself. I finished another book. It was an audiobook. It's called Range, Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. It was pretty good. I think I gave it 4 or 5 stars. It was a decent length. I think the premise is kind of straightforward, and if you agree with the premise, then you'll enjoy the book. It goes into detail as to documenting the different case studies where being a generalist or having a general mindset was better. It also adds analogies like if you were a fox or a groundhog. Basically, if you go deep or you go wide. I gave another set of animal analogies, but I can't remember the animals right now. But yeah, it was pretty good. It was a fairly fast listen. Aside from the case studies, I didn't really learn anything new. It just kind of confirmed what I already think. So I finished Legends and Lattes. It was fantastic. I give it 4 or 5 stars. It was cozy and whimsical and lovely, and it felt like a nice cup of coffee on a Sunday morning. It was just lovely. It did have flaws, which is why I gave it 4 stars, but that's nothing to complain about. If you don't know what the book is about an orc or an ogre, I forget what she is, but she's starting a new life and decided to open up a coffee shop. In that journey, she gains a partner and she makes friends, and it's just sweet and lovely and very slow. There's not a lot of plot, but it's very character and vibes. So if you're into a chill, cozy fantasy vibe, then it's a lovely book. And I was all for it. So yeah. Hey, hello. So I finished another book, and that's Psalms for the Wild Built. It was a cute story. It went fairly quick, less than 200 pages, but it was sweet and calm and like a cup of tea that you just sip slowly, which kind of goes in the theme of cozy fantasy. And overall, I enjoyed it, so it was a 4 star. The book is about Dex coming across a wild-built robot called Mosscap. Mainly, they're just talking to one another. Mosscap is trying to figure out what humans want, and Dex is just kind of lost in the world, and talking to Mosscap kind of helps. It was just a book about 2 individuals talking to each other, and it was sweet and lovely, and I could definitely understand where Dex is coming from. Definitely understand that feeling, so I loved it, which is why I gave it 4 stars. So I finished a book. I finished The Maid. It was pretty good. I gave it 3 stars. I had a decent time. There wasn't really that much of a mystery. You kind of know what's happening, and the reason is because the main character, Molly, she's unique. I got Abed vibes from her. And like Cindy said, she kind of reminds you of Amelia Bedelia. She takes things literal and doesn't really get sarcasm or pick up social cues, so she might be on the spectrum, which is why she gave me Abed vibes. But overall, it's decent. 2/3 of the book, I was kind of annoyed, but it gave a good ending, so there's nothing to complain. The book is mainly about a maid who works at some fancy hotel. While she's cleaning the room, she finds a guest who's dead, and she reports it. And initially, the cops think that it's just a heart attack or something of natural causes. The cops later realize that it's a homicide, and since Molly is the last person to see the guest, she becomes a suspect. The reason I got annoyed the first 2/3 of the book was because she's seen as a suspect. She talks to cops and people on the spectrum or autistic people. Because they're different, they're seen as suspects because they don't have normal social cues, which is annoying. And I was annoyed for her, but I could understand why she wasn't picking up on these things. I don't know, scenes where innocent suspects are talking to cops, but they're seen as suspects really annoys me, so that's why I was annoyed. But it's still pretty good. You know she's not in any real danger, so you just kind of have to push through it. But yeah. 2/3 of the book was 2 stars. The ending was 3 stars, so overall a 3-star book. I finished Final Girls. It was fantastic. I gave it 5 stars. It was fast-paced and thrilling, and you definitely don't know what's going to happen. I didn't know what's going to happen. I read it really quickly too, but it helped that I had the audiobook. If you don't know what the book is about a final girl called Quincy who realizes that another final girl she once knew named Lisa passed away, and reports say that she took her own life. And with that, a third final girl, Sam, appears at Quincy's door, looking to seek a support group or just make sure that it doesn't come in threes. girls, or, that sort of thing. The only thing is that Quincy can't remember the incident that made her a final girl. She doesn't remember what happened. She doesn't remember the details. All she knows is that she was the last one standing and she survived. And that's as much as I'll say. It goes a lot further and it's very interesting and it's crazy. It's just crazy. But I really enjoyed it and I gave it 5 stars. Hey, hello. So I finished a book. I finished Malibu Rising. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was pretty good. It moves pretty slow. If you don't know what the book is about a rich family and 4 siblings who are rich but weren't rich and they're rich now. And you also learn about their parents and the emotional abuse between the parents and the effect it had on the kids. It did give me summery vibes since it was about Malibu. I gave it 3 stars because mostly I didn't care about the family because the author didn't make me want to care. It's about a rich family and it's split between one night where there's going to be a big party, which is called the Rivas party, and in between chapters it goes through the history of the family. So it's jumping back and forth, which is okay, but in doing that it made me care less about the family. Every time it mentioned June or Nina, I wanted to know more, but the author didn't let me because it kept mentioning random things that were happening at the party or the events leading up to the party and random side characters that I just didn't care. And the ending was okay, I guess. The party gets out of hand and things happen and mostly it just kind of ends with like a okay feeling. So while it was fairly interesting to read, it wasn't that interesting. So I gave it 3 stars. I finished another book. I finished Beach Read, and I have thoughts. If you don't know what the book is about 2 writers who end up on the same beachfront. They decide to make a bet and swap writing styles. One of them is a romance writer, and the other one is more of a literary fiction writer. And so they decide, let's write each other's genre and see how it goes. And I thought that sounded fun, and for the most part it was. That part was interesting. The issue I have with this book is the romance aspect. This isn't my first romance. I've read other romances and I usually give a 4 or 5 stars. I know what I expect. They're pretty predictable. So I kind of expected this to be that, and I was disappointed because it's not that. It's basically 2 people who are just lusting after each other for some reason. One of them is more of an avoidant attachment style and the other one is an anxious attachment style, and they're pretty much just lusting after each other, which, is fine, but that's not love. I guess the issue I have with it, if there even is one, is that I see romance as either two aisles. One is very unrealistic and fluffy and fun and just a nice time. The second one is a more realistic approach, but still enjoyable. And this book took the more realistic aspect, except I couldn't believe the ending, even though I can believe the ending of more fluffy, unrealistic books, because I buy into that. But this one was different. I could tell the characters were real or were based off of real people, and they have flaws, and that's good, but 2 people like this wouldn't have a happily ever after. So by the time I got to the 70% part, I fully expected them to not get together, and that would have been more realistic, I think, than them actually staying together, because it was just too realistic for me, and it gave me flashbacks because I have met a Gus. I've dated a Gus type of person, and it didn't end well. It ended in heartbreak, and I couldn't believe the ending. That's basically it. I see it as more of a literary fiction than a romance, and if it was written that way with a realistic ending, I think I would have preferred it more that way versus a fake ending. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't know. It's not like I didn't like it. It's that I didn't like it as a romance and its ending. It's unrealistic ending. Maybe it's just a me thing and my experience is playing a role in how I rated it, but that kind of happens. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't give me nice, fluffy, unrealistic vibes, which I kind of hoped for. And instead it gave me realistic, here's what never happened for you kind of vibes, and it rubbed me the wrong way. I did also read Attached recently, so I don't know if that's playing a role, but I could very clearly see that this was an avoidant and anxious attachment style coming together that were just lusting after each other, which generally doesn't end well. I don't know, I just gave it 3 stars. Take what you will from that. It's written well, but it wasn't fluffy and it's not what I expected. Cool, and the last remaining books are 2 books. One is Attached. I thought it was pretty great. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really insightful. It goes through the 3 different attachment styles of relationships: anxious, avoidance, and secure. It goes about talking about relationships in an anecdotal way, which I don't think is a bad thing. It gives you a nice example, and it definitely gets the point across. I think the only people who wouldn't like this book would be avoidant attachment styles, which it talks very little about. And if I'm being honest, it makes them seem like the bad guys, which, fair, but, we're all a little messed up, and I think we all can benefit from therapy. But yeah, I thought it was a great book. I gave it 4 stars. I definitely learned something from it, and will probably move forward with this newfound knowledge. Hey, hello. And the last book is The Bodyguard. I thought it was really great. It was a nice, fluffy, sweet, romantic time. It's fairly predictable, which most romance books are, and I obviously buy into that, and that's why I'm picking it up and read it. They're both sweet characters, and I don't really have a complaint, except I can't really believe that she's a Texan. How is she afraid of a cow? That's silly, but other than that, I really had a nice time. If you don't know what the book is about a woman, I forget her name. She's a bodyguard, and she's hired to look after this famous guy who's temporarily moved to Texas because of family issues, and she's hired to look after him. And although she's going through some stuff with some grief and some heartbreak, it's still fairly light and fluffy, and I don't know, it was nice, which is the point of a romance, and it was fairly short. And I really liked it, and so I gave it 4 stars. Hey, hello. So I forgot to film an outro, but yeah, those are all the books that I read in Q2. Thanks for watching. Bye!